Let's piss some people off.
Now, have you ever catch yourself explaining something that didn't even need that much explanation? Like you say no, but then you feel the need to add a whole paragraph after it. Or you take a step back from someone and now you're sitting there rehearsing how to explain it so they don't take it the wrong way. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I realized something about myself that I didn't like at first. I don't just explain to communicate, I also explain to be understood. And if I'm being really honest, sometimes I even explain myself so I don't get rejected. Let me ask you something. How much of your life have you spent explaining yourself? Explaining your choices, explaining your boundaries, explaining your silence, explaining your growth, as if your existence needs a justification to be accepted. But there comes a moment in your growth where you realize you're not explaining to be understood. You're explaining to be allowed. And that's where everything starts to change. Hi, and welcome back to I Am Spies, a podcast. This is a space where we talk about identity, growth, healing, and the uncomfortable truths that most people avoid, but that actually change your life. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here, you already know the vibe. Go ahead and take a second to follow, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because these are the conversations that shift how you see yourself. And today, we're closing out the self selection series. I used to think that explaining myself meant I was communicating well, that it meant I was mature, that it meant I was emotionally intelligent, that I was doing the right thing. But when I really sat with it, I realized something deeper. A lot of my explaining was coming from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen the wrong way, fear of losing connection if I didn't make everything make sense to them. And that shows up in small ways. You don't just say no, you explain why. You don't just take space, you justify it. You don't just change, you try to make sure everyone understands your growth. And on the outside, it looks healthy, but on the inside, it's exhausting because what you're really doing is managing how other people experience you. Over explaining is usually not just a habit, it's a learned response. At some point, your feelings were questioned, your boundaries weren't respected, or your reality was minimized. So you learned, if I explain myself better, they'll understand me. If I say it the right way, they won't get upset. If I give enough context, I won't be rejected. But here's the truth. People who respect you don't need a full breakdown to honor your boundaries. And people who don't, they'll misunderstand you anyway. So, self selection starts when you realize you don't need to explain your decisions to people who are not living your life. And that one hits hard because how many times have you explained yourself to people who are not even affected by your choices? You start explaining your growth to people who don't want to grow. You start explaining your boundaries to people who benefited from you not having any. You start explaining your distance to people who were comfortable with your availability. And now you're stuck, constantly defending yourself. And let's be real, this part is uncomfortable because when you stop explaining yourself, people notice. They say things like, you've changed. And you feel that urge to explain, to soften it, to make it make sense, to make them comfortable again. But the real question is, can you let them think that without correcting it? Can you let someone misunderstand you without defining yourself? Can you hold your truth without needing them to agree with it? Because that's where self-respect actually gets built when you stop explaining yourself. You're not becoming cold, you're becoming anchored. You're no longer performing your truth, you're living it. You're no longer asking for permission, you're making decisions. And that's uncomfortable for people who were used to a version of you that was always explaining, always adjusting, always available. Because that version of you was easier to access. This version requires respect. So, what does this actually look like? It looks like saying no and leaving it there, taking space without announcing it, making decisions without asking for approval, outgrowing people without writing a whole explanation, moving in silence and letting your actions speak, and trusting that the right people won't need an explanation to understand your heart. You can explain yourself and still be misunderstood, or you can stand in your truth and let people reveal whether they were ever meant to understand you at all. So I want you to really sit with this. Where in your life are you still over explaining just to be accepted? And what would it look like to choose yourself without explaining it? If this episode hits you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Save it, come back to it, and if you've been with me through this whole self selection series, this is your reminder that you don't need permission to be who you've become so far. Until the next one, guys. See you on the next episode. Love you bunches.
And remember, we're unfiltered, unapologetic, and unstoppable. That's that.